This video is going to focus upon evil and suffering, all right? So, and hopefully forgiveness if it doesn't overrun. So, first things first, right? Describe Catholic views on the existence of evil. This one now, guys, you've got to think about where evil comes from and why it occurs. So, first of all, Catholics believe that evil originated from the fall. So when Adam and Eve turned away from God, all right, that's when evil that's when evil came into the world, all right? They also believe then, as a result of this, that evil was not created by God, okay? And instead, the disharmony that was created by us turning away from him, that is when evil came into the world. They also believe that evil was called occurs because of natural evil, all right? Things like hurricanes, tsunamis. And you link that to the idea I've literally just said about the fact that when evil came into the world, that disharmony that was caused by humans turning away. God created perfection. We damaged that by turning away from him. As a result of that, natural evil came into the world. The second type of evil is moral evil, and this comes down to the misuse of free will. So, for example, the type of thing you say here is like doing rape, murder, those type of ideas, okay? That's when people don't use their free will incorrectly. Other sort of ideas that you can draw upon here is about original sin. So Catholics believe that we've all got original sin, and this is a compulsion for us, okay, to go and what's called to do wrong, or temptation if you want, okay? So you can say that that's another reason why what's called when we give into that temptation is when evil occurs. We're going to link this to sort of two other things as well. Augustinian theodicy. Now this is the belief that evil occurs when we turn away from God or when there's an absence of God, okay? Really establishing that evil is to do with us, not to do with God. You've then sort of got the ideas of Irenaeus and Hick, okay? So, just got to stammer a bit there, Irenaeus and Hick, okay? Now, those two people talk about the process of soul making. It's a little bit like virtue ethics, that it's the idea that throughout our lives, we're made in God's image and likeness, yes, but we need to be more like God, okay? It's a journey that we're on. And as we do, every time we're like God, if you want to think about our soul being like a puzzle, ooh, I've done something good, add another piece, and we make our soul, okay? And sort of when we make wrong decisions, right, and we sort of we make evil occur and suffering occur, so it's our fault, all right? So that because God has allowed us this process of essentially that life being a test, right? When we fail that test, then that's when evil occurs, okay? Quite a hard one, all right? If you can't remember that, focus on the other ones. Now, why does evil and suffering cause some people to be agnostic or atheist, to not be sure if God exists, or to not believe in him? Well, number one, if God's supposed to be all loving, why do you allow it to occur? Number two, if he's all powerful, why doesn't he stop it from happening? And if he's all knowing, why was he silly enough to give us all free will if we're going to misuse it? And the fourth sort of thing you can say here is that, you could link the idea as well as being omnipresent. If God is everywhere, why doesn't he intervene when it's about to take place? Now, A-star answer is going to talk about the inconsistent triad, all right? That is those three omnis, not omnipresent, but the other three, that because God is described as being those things, there are times when it appears that he's not. And as a result of that, the inconsistent triad is one of the big reasons why people don't believe in God, that they don't feel that God is omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and omniscient. And if he doesn't fulfill those three key things, then maybe God isn't all what he is described as being, or maybe he doesn't exist, okay? Now, how do Catholics respond to this? All right? Or how do they still continue to believe in God, because even when evil and suffering sort of exists? Well, you've got all the ideas that you had before. It's not God's fault, okay? Natural and moral evils are down to sort of human beings, that type of idea, all right? But you can also add these ideas to it as well. That it gives us an opportunity to do God's work, okay? Prayer, service, that sort of stuff when evil and suffering occurs. It gives us the opportunity to show love to thy neighbour. So we can do that process of soul making, if you want to link the ideas together, or that we can gain salvation, we can go to heaven. The next one is that it's preparation for paradise. The idea that if we only had perfection in the world, then the world and heaven would be the same, and we wouldn't appreciate heaven if we go there. The next one is, you say about the misuse of free will, I've mentioned that. Life is a test. God is testing to see whether we pass that test, essentially, okay? There's another one you could say, but we do not always understand God's plan, so we can learn from when evil and suffering occurs, during the learning processes, all right? And you can also use words, things like transcendent. God's transcendent. We can't understand his plan for us at times, but maybe later in life, when it all pieces together, then we understand it a little bit better. We grow from experiencing evil and suffering. Now, Catholic and Jewish views, you've got to explain them. Just draw upon all those ideas I just said. Jewish views are very similar, but not exactly the same, okay? So you can say that they believe that evil occurs, all right, or most Jews believe that evil occurs when it's down to sort of misuse of free will, and you can also link it to the idea of sort of the fall and natural evil being the fault of human beings, okay? But then there are other Jews that sort of disagree a little bit, and what they would say is that we should bless upon the good as we bless upon the bad, all right? We bless upon the bad as we bless upon the good, sorry. Now, this means that, or this leads some Jews to believing that God allows evil to exist, okay, as a way of sort of punishing us. And the final thing to draw upon is the fact that Jews, instead of sort of believing in sort of original sin, what some Jews believe is that that's actually sort of the devil within us, okay, and the devil sort of tempting us to do wrong, okay? So instead of using the idea of original sin, you can talk about the fact that they believe that when we were created, that the devil dwells within us, and only sort of like a small sort of aspect, it is him that is tempting us to do wrong in our lives. So when we misuse free will, it's when we give in to that temptation. So, that sort of draws upon all the different views on evil and suffering. And if you get as an evaluation question, evil and suffering proves that God doesn't exist, that's when you draw upon those atheist and agnostic ideas that we said about the inconsistent triad, all that sort of stuff. So you just bring all those different ideas together. Now, you could be asked then, all right, because they link together, about forgiveness, okay? And if you are sort of thinking about forgiveness here, all right, you could be asked to describe Catholic views on forgiveness. So Catholics believe that we should forgive others. It was called we should forgive others as if we want God to forgive us, okay? Link that to the idea of forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, doing the Lord's Prayer. You can also say that Catholics believe that God will forgive us if we've forgiven others, okay? Link that to the teaching of if you forgive other people, then your Holy Father will forgive you. That's a bit of a paraphrase. You can say that Catholics, when it comes to forgiveness, they believe that that anyone can receive forgiveness, and you can link that to the idea of the penitent thief, okay? You can even link that to the idea of when Jesus forgives those who kills him, okay? Who kill him, sorry. That links with another sort of idea that forgiveness is difficult, but we still got to do it when Jesus forgave those who killed him. You say that we should always forgive, not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times, or 77 times, depending on your reference. And you could also say that we should not seek revenge, that instead we should forgive. And Jesus says we should turn the other cheek. So, the other one, that we should forgive all people, okay? So Jesus says you should love your enemies, all right? And part of showing love to them is forgiving them. Now, Jewish views, okay, on this, obviously, it was got a lot of those teachings that I just gave were from Jesus, okay? But even still, Jews, they have a very sort of like similar view on this as well, okay? So when it comes to it, they believe that you should, because it's a mitzvah from God, it's a commandment from God to forgive, okay? And the commandment is, do not hate your brother in your heart. So if you're not going to hate them, you need to forgive them. So Jews believe in the importance of it, okay? Also, Jews believe that it's important to seek forgiveness. And the reason for this is that they believe in teshuvah, okay? Which is sort of like the belief that you should, as I said, seek forgiveness, all right? So you can say that that's why Jews place a huge sort of importance on forgiveness. And you can also link it to the idea of the 10 days leading up to Yom Kippur as being sort of like the time when they seek, when they repent their sins and they sort of seek forgiveness. Now, you could be asked with both these topics, and that's why I've done these sort of 2 views together. All right, actually, before I do that, if you get an evaluation question about forgiveness being too hard to forgive, you can say about some people don't believe that we should forgive because people don't deserve our forgiveness, okay? Because what they've done is so bad. Also, that people don't seek forgiveness, and maybe you can only be forgiven if you seek forgiveness, all right? You could also say that it's too hard to always forgive. We're not perfect like Jesus. If someone was to kill someone we loved, there's no chance that we'd be able to forgive them. Now, You could be asked to explain a Catholic and Jewish, what's called, example of how we respond to forgiveness or evil and suffering. Now, in this video, I'm telling you to focus on, if it's the Catholic example, focus on what's called G. Walker, or the Walker family, and their son, Anthony Walker. And for the Jewish example, I want you to focus upon Eva Moses Core, okay? Focus on those two people, because they link with both of them. Now, if you had to describe, I'm going to focus with G. Walker, the Catholic example first. Describe the events of with G. Walker and their family. So, Anthony Walker, the son, he was murdered, okay? He was murdered, and what happened was that G. Walker and their family decided to not to kill, they didn't decide that, they decided to forgive the person who did it. And the reason why they decided to do it is that they were people of God. They believed essentially in all those teachings I've said about forgiveness. If we want to be forgiven in our lives, then we've got to forgive too. That it's down to God to sort of pass judgment, not them. She also speaks about the fact that it helps us to sort of move on. If we forgive others, it helps to move on. You're going to get the idea that we should always forgive. Now, you can use that example, literally just use the exact same points we just said about forgiveness, but just say, G. Walker believed, or the Walker family believed, and then say about those ideas of forgiveness, okay? With that introduction I gave about Anthony Walker being killed and the family decided to forgive the person who did it, okay? Or the people, there's two of them. Now, when it comes to the Jewish example, Eva Moses Core, okay? Eva Moses Core, she was a Jewish prisoner. She was a twin, all right, who went to a concentration camp. She was experimented upon. She nearly died, but she knew that if she did die, then her twin sister would be killed as well. So she fought through it, and she survived. The concentration camp she was in was liberated, and going forward, she decided to forgive her captors, forgive the Nazis, okay? And what she did as a result, she famously hugged one, okay, called Otto Groening, all right, in court, and forgave him for sort of his part in what happened. And also, she has become a public speaker, and she has set up a museum called Candles, okay, to get this message across. Now, when it comes to sort of her idea, if you get asked to explain a Jewish personal response to evil and suffering, you can say about the fact that she teaches about the importance of forgiveness, and you can say, look at the idea of do not hate your brother in your heart, that sort of idea, okay? And you can link that then, so therefore she forgave the Jewish party. You can say about Otto Groening and that sort of idea in your answer. You could also say, when it comes to evil and suffering, that she believes that you should learn from your mistakes. And that is why she's become a public speaker. She set up Candles. The reason for that is that we don't repeat those mistakes and we can move on. So you can use her example for evil and suffering. But if they ask you for a specific Jewish response to forgiveness, the two paragraphs you use need to be about forgiveness. So your first paragraph, you say the same thing, that she believes that you should forgive them, all right, in order to be able to move on, and or because it's a commandment from God, because it's a commandment from God. Why? Do not hate your brother in your heart. So therefore she decided to forgive the person, all right. You can also say that for your second paragraph, the reason that she forgave is that it let her get control over her life again, okay, and it helped her to sort of compartmentalize, or to switch off from that point and be able to move on. Now, it's obviously this important because all of us have a plan in our lives. All of us have that all life, if you want, all life is sacred, and we should use our lives to do what God wants us to do. Now, she believed that part of that was her forgiving the Nazi party for what they did, and then using her life to teach others about the importance of this never happening again. And that's why she became a public speaker and activist and set up the museum Candles. So when it comes to Eva Moses Core, very similar, okay, paragraphs, but just be careful that when it comes to evil and suffering, that you go in paragraph 1 talking about forgiveness, paragraph 2 about how we should learn from it. But when it comes to, if you get asked about a personal response to forgiveness rather than evil and suffering, you use an Eva Moses Core again, but your first paragraph is about that she felt you should because you're commanded to. The second one is that you should forgive because we've got a plan, and then you can link that again to the idea of becoming a public speaker, learning from the example. Just be careful about your phrasing. Thank you very much.